I apologize. I forgot to mention something earlier to the audience. If you do have a question, just raise your hand, and my son Zane will come get it, or just drop it off up here. Either way, if you have a question for the judges race, just drop it off. Thank you.
Okay, the first set of questions are from our Voters Guide, individual questions for each of you, beginning with Mr. Brown. In the Headliner News Voters Guide, you talk about how the courts are facing large caseloads and the jail is over capacity, both money and time-wise. You said you know how to make the system run more efficiently. If elected, how do you plan to do so?
Well, thank you for the question. I have spent more time in circuit court than probably a lot of people, a lot of attorneys. I'm in court practically every day of my life. We waste a lot of time in court. That's a fact. A lot of cases just get reset, especially criminal cases. One thing I would propose that I actually mentioned in the Voters Guide is scheduling orders. We make people stick to we make a scheduling order, tell attorneys when things are going to be done, how they're going to be done, when they're going to be done by, and we stick with that. And if you don't stick with that, there's penalties. Whatever penalties the court can give out on whatever sanctions the court can dish out that are appropriate. We can get through those cases if we hold people's feet to the fire, essentially. No more resetting over and over and over again. That's one way to get through cases efficiently and quickly.
Okay, Mrs. Grocock. In the Voters Guide, you say judges should be community leaders, starting with young children. As a judge, you won't see many children in your courtroom, so how do you, if elected judge, reach out to and set example for children?
Actually, if elected, I think I will see children in my courtroom. The rumor is if the new judge takes the bench that the family caseload from Judge Luna is going to be half given to our new circuit judge. So yes, I will see, or we will see, whoever's elected, children in our courtroom. Aside from that, I think it starts at the education level. We have the ability to be leaders in our community. I am a leader in my community. I volunteered lots of time through various organizations throughout my time living here in Christian County. And if we get in the schools, if we educate, the problem with our court system is people don't understand what happens in court. And so if we can educate our children at a young age and teach them about court and invite them into the courtroom, perhaps it won't be such a scary place, and we can teach them how to abide by the law and what our judges and sheriffs and the judicial system is about.
Mr. Elmer, in the Voters Guide, you mentioned your time representing Christian County and the Capitol as Vice Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. As Vice Chair, what did you do on that committee, and how will that experience be beneficial to Christian County?
Well, I was fortunate. I only served 4 years up there, and from the day I hit the door, they made me the Vice Chair of Judiciary. So I was fortunate to serve in that role, and I worked with Stan Cox, who was the chair of that during the entire 4 years. And what we did was we did significant stuff that I think is applicable to this race, in the fact that, like, we did a complete revamping of the criminal code that had not been done in over 40 years. And that was quite a monumental task. I mean, we had meetings for over 2 years with prosecutors, public defenders, sheriffs, highway patrol, the Supreme Court, other court justices down in municipalities, trying to not throw out the old law, but try to take it and make it fit together. I mean, we have continuing changes within our system, and like in the criminal system, this K2 stuff that you heard about a few years ago, well, we had to make some new laws. Well, it didn't really fit where it was at, so there's stuff where we went through and streamlined it, but that was probably the most significant. The rest of the time we were dealing with all sorts of adjudication issues with our courts.
Okay, the first question beginning with Mrs. Grocock. According to Supreme Court Rule Canon 4, a judge or candidate for judicial office shall not engage in political or campaign activity that is inconsistent with the independence, integrity, or impartiality of the judiciary. Explain what this means and why that is.
There's been many cases regarding this issue all across our country on whether or not judicial candidates and judges can exercise their right to free speech. And judges are supposed to be fair and impartial. And if you are coming before and picking a candidate, if I wasn't in this race and I picked Tony Brown, that wouldn't be being very fair and impartial. And people look toward judges in our community. So by getting involved in political activity at all levels, including getting involved in other races before legislative races, our races for our governor candidate, that is stepping over the lines, in my opinion. And that is only because the judges have the duty to be fair and impartial and unbiased.
Mr. Elmer?
Could you read the question again?
Yes. According to Supreme Court Rules, Canon 4, a judge or candidate for judicial office shall not engage in political or campaign activity that is inconsistent with the independence, integrity, or impartiality of the judiciary. Explain what this means and why that is.
And I agree that the judges should not be out there participating in the election processes. They shouldn't be putting forth positions on things. That doesn't disqualify me because I've been a state representative. I mean, those are facts of what's happened in the past. And so I think that whatever I've had that I've done in the past, I mean, people can look at what I believe in fundamentally, but you put that aside whenever you enter the bench. And you go up on the bench, and once you're on the bench, that's what precludes you from that. You cannot participate in those things once you're on there. So you would disqualify a lot of people that would be available to run for judge if you said any prior political activity would disqualify them. I mean, how far back are you going to go? Are you going to look at if somebody gave to a particular race 10 years ago? You know, nobody can ever give any money and then ever run for judge. So it's applicable once you go up on the bench, and it's strict. You're not to be engaged in those things. And I pledge that I will not be. And I will be fair and impartial and treat everyone without bias.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you. I think both my colleagues have said it excellently. This is one of the most plainly written rules in our Supreme Court rules, actually. It just means stay out of political activity. When you're running for judge, when you are a judge, stay out of political activity. Don't support any particular candidate, don't support any particular party. In fact, I mean, I think it's strange that we have to run in partisan elections for judge, for a nonpartisan, essentially what is a nonpartisan, non-political office. But that's the way the rules are, we gotta stick with them. You know, so my opinion is, and the rules clearly state, you just stay out of political activity, and that's what that canon simply means.
Okay, the next question will begin with Mr. Elmer. In light of what Mr. Brown said, what role do you think political affiliation plays in being a judge?
Well, in being a judge, it should play none. I mean, that's the short answer. But as Mr. Brown pointed out, we do have partisan elections, so you have to register on a ticket to run as a Republican or a Democrat. That's the system we have. But once you get in office, I mean, the party affiliation has nothing to do with it, which is why if you read the rules and cases out there and things, I mean, once you're a judge, you can't hold positions within the party. I mean, you can still affiliate with a party, but you no longer can be like the chairman of the Missouri Republican Party. So you're to distance yourself from those. But our system does recognize that we have a party system, and that's how we're elected.
Mr. Brown?
Can you repeat the question again? I apologize.
Yes. What role do you think political affiliation plays in being a judge?
It should play no role, and I believe it plays no role. And I mean, that's really just the answer. I mean, like we've all said, you have to run as a party. You have to run on a ticket as a particular party, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, whichever. I believe it should play no role, and as a judge, I would not let it play a role.
Mrs. Grocott?
I tend to agree somewhat. At the circuit court level, it should not play a part at all. And in fact, if you move up, if you look at our Supreme Court, it should not play a role there either. But it does once you get up to a higher court level. So at our circuit judges, no, you should walk in, you should be impartial and fair to every person. You don't know if the person who walks in before you is a Republican or a Democrat. That being said, you take your values in with you to the court, but you have to be willing to set that aside. And I tend to disagree a little bit with what has been said here as far as once you are a judge. I think that goes when you're a judicial candidate too. You can't sit on political boards and stuff of that nature. So once you get on up, everybody rates judges on their conservatism or whether they're a liberal judge, but judges should apply the law fairly, impartially, and equally to everybody.
Okay, next question beginning with Mr. Brown. Between adding a judge and splitting our circuit, the court's biggest challenge may have been alleviated. However, what other issues do you see concerning the courts in Christian County?
Well, one of the issues I see actually concerns Taney County. This judge will probably be, this judge, or if I'm elected, probably Judge Johnson, will probably be still traveling down to Taney County on a frequent basis because the judge, that person's becoming judge down there, is going to be disqualified from pretty much every single case due to his 12 years, or 14 years on the bench as an associate circuit judge. He's not going to be able to hear any cases. So, the problem we have now is, yes, we've got an extra judge, but now we're going to have to allocate that judge to another county that's not even in our circuit anymore. That is one particular problem I see with our court system, and increasing caseloads. We are the fastest growing county in the state of Missouri. That is one challenge I foresee in the coming future. We've been the fastest growing county for several years. We're one of the fastest growing counties in the nation. And our criminal caseload and our civil caseload is just going to increase as we get further down the line.
Mrs. Grocott?
Could you repeat it, please?
Sure. Between adding a judge and splitting our circuit, the court's biggest challenge may have been alleviated. However, what other issues do you see concerning the courts in Christian County?
I agree with Tony. I think that a lot of cases from Taney County will end up here as well from a lawyer perspective. I also believe that we are overcrowded as far as our family law docket goes, and I think that's pretty well known across the county. So yes, I think we will be able to rapidly change the way that we are operating now, but I also believe that we will continue to have an increase in caseload and an increase in the family law cases that come before us.
Mr. Elmer?
I think for the judge who's elected, the first thing will be the adjustment to having a new judge in the system and reallocating some of these cases and figuring out how things go. I can tell you from being in the House and dealing with budget issues and stuff from that level for the judiciary, there's additional concerns outside of you add a new judge. The statute also funded a court reporter, but judges also need clerks. So there's an additional workload of paper and processing cases and things like that haven't been addressed by the change this year that are still going to be a problem within the circuit clerk's office. So it's great to have the judge, but I think there's also some additional resources that are going to have to be accounted for and moved around, as well as then how this interplay goes with the management of the caseload between our county, Taney County, and other things with the different types of cases.
Okay, next question beginning with Mrs. Grocott. How do you think the caseload will be split for the new judge based on current judge caseloads?
I think I've answered that, and we've spoke to that a little bit, and I only know the rumors coming from the judges here that I've heard from lawyers and the judges. I think that Judge Luna plans to give half of his family law docket. There's about 1,300 family law cases that are filed in Christian County every year. That is extreme, and I think we don't know if he's going to give the odd cases or the even cases. That hasn't been decided yet, but I think that's going to be a portion of the cases that are allocated. And then because Judge Johnson gets to stay up here for the most part, and we'll have a new circuit judge in Taney County, that will allow to split the felony cases that she has, as well as the civil cases that are over $25,000. The rest of our cases that are high volume are Judge Luna's cases as well, that are the cases in the Associate Circuit Court that are under $25,000 civil cases. So we may allocate that differently as well.
Mr. Elmer?
I don't really have much to add because I think all of us are hearing the same rumors. I mean, we're talking to people and they're telling us, oh, well, the judges are talking about this and that. And I know that the current judges have been meeting with lawyers, and they have a committee set up where that they're trying to revamp some of the local rules and things to account for this. And it's just not fully settled yet. So it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen, but I think that's part of the requirement of anybody running for this, and I think all three candidates up here are probably willing to be flexible and not say we're going to go in with some predetermined notion about how the cases are going to be handled or allocated. And I think that's part of being a team player within this judicial system.
Okay, next question beginning with, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Very sorry.
Well, honestly, I don't have much to add to either one of those answers. I mean, you've heard what the answer is. Part of the cases that we'll get are some of the family cases. We'll get a portion of the felony cases. We'll get a portion of the civil cases over $25,000. I mean, I think last year there were nearly 600 felony cases filed in circuit court last year, along with a little bit less civil cases, and so that needs to be split amongst the two circuit judges. And just give me a case, I'll do whatever needs to be done, because I'm a team player just like everyone else on the stage.
Okay, now the next question, I'm beginning with Mr. Elmer. For whomever is elected, there will obviously be a learning curve.
We just have to roll up the cases, be open to going down different avenues if the efficiency isn't there, and just committing ourselves to this job and learning it. I mean, anybody who goes on is going to have to learn. You haven't been a judge before, and you just have to commit yourself to doing that, calling other judges in other areas, talking to the ones currently sitting, and getting input from all sorts of people.
Mr. Brown?
Well, as you pointed out, the majority of my practice is criminal. I do have some civil experience. The way I would supplement that is reading and calling other judges and calling amongst trusted friends and that are in the field. Obviously I would research. I would read and research and figure out where I need to supplement, and attend as many classes as I could as to civil cases. Like I said, we all, in law school, you learn all the same stuff. Go to all the same classes. You learn about civil practice, you learn about family practice, you learn about criminal practice. So we all have the necessary building blocks. It'll just be some supplementation, reading, going to continuing legal education classes, that sort of thing. And I'm always willing to learn.
Mrs. Grocott?
I don't think that I've ever had one case in my practice where everything was exactly the same and I didn't have to learn something. So, we are constant learners. The law is constantly changing. I'm sure all of us up here look at the new cases that come out every single day, and the Supreme Court cases that come out on their hand-down days. And so this wouldn't be any different for any of us up here. We would all have to undertake to learn the area of law that we aren't the most proficient in, and that's just what it takes to be a student of the law and a constant learner, and use the resources that we have available to us to do that.
Wonderful. Next question, beginning with Mr. Brown. And this is an audience question. How many years have you served as a lawyer?
I've been a lawyer for approximately over 6 years, going on my 7th year as an attorney now. I've handled, as a prosecutor, I've handled nearly 10,000 cases ranging from traffic to murder. I've appeared before the Southern District Court of Appeals a couple times. I've appeared before the State Supreme Court quite a few times now, defending some of our local judges, the late Judge Orr and the now retired Judge Waters. It is a short amount of time. I fully admit that. I'm the youngest candidate running for any county office. But there is something to be said for experience, and I am in the courtroom every single day of my career.
Mrs. Grocott?
I've been a lawyer for 12 years since graduating law school. I went directly to law school out of college, so. Do you want me to expand on that, or the question was pretty
Only
pointed?
one to.
Okay, no, that's
Mr. Elmer?
question.
I've been practicing law for 16 years.
Okay. Next question, beginning with Mrs. Grocott, is also from the audience. What is the root cause of the high number of cases in family court, and what can be done in our community to fix it?
Interesting question. I'm not sure of the root cause of the cases in family court. There's all sorts of cases in family court, from modification of child support cases to custody cases to divorce cases. So I guess it's because we have a lot of people that want divorce in Christian County, and a lot of people that have already been divorced and are seeking modification or some sort of custody change. And how we address that from the bench, I guess I don't know how to answer that, how to address, that one has me stumped. I'm not sure how we address that society issue from the bench.
Okay, Mr. Elmer?
You read the question again.
Sure. What is the root cause of the high number of cases in family court, and what can be done in our community to fix it?
Well, and the root cause is one of those things where, I mean, you could go back to kind of a values issue. I mean, our society has shifted some, and I think we can all readily identify that. I mean, we have families that are, we have this term blended families now, and we talk about that sort of stuff, and that's a change in our society. So our courts then have to make some adjustments for that, and it's through the caseload, and it's through the types of cases they handle. You see different jurisdictions where they have more judges. If you go north of here to Greene County, where they have several, they have family court commissioners and things to try to address that load. Now, in a smaller circuit like this one, that's a different challenge because we don't have as many resources to divide these things among. But you know, how you handle that issue is really just handling the caseload. I mean, you can't change society from the bench, but you do need to address the issues that are coming before you.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you. It's absolutely a societal issue. You know, you can't change society. Society's going to change, and it has changed from 50 years ago. We didn't have nearly as many divorces 50 years ago as we do today, and that's why you see a lot more family cases, and why you see a lot more cases in family court. You know, how to address that? Society's going to change on its own, unfortunately, and you know, there's really nothing to do. You just got to manage the cases as best you can.
Okay, this next question also comes from the audience, beginning with Mr. Elmer. As judge, assuming a guilty verdict, do or would you favor probation for offenders or punishment that fits the offense for both civil and criminal cases?
Well, I'm more of a strict application of the law person. So, you know, the punishment fits the crime is it. I mean, that's what it is. Now, I don't believe that you go full bore on everything, because that's not what is justice in our system. Justice is the person, whether it be on the civil side or the criminal side, receiving their fair day in court, and it being adjudicated in a reasonable way, the application of the law. Now, sometimes as a judge, you may not necessarily agree with the outcome, or you may have some empathy for somebody, but that's not your position as a judge. Your position as a judge is to apply the laws before you. And while you may personally still have some feeling about it, you have to put it aside and apply the law as it's written. And you know, even in civil cases, I had one here just a week ago that we tried a little bench trial, and it was a difficult outcome. I don't really think it was fair, but it was the result because it was a proper application of the law.
Mr. Brown?
Well, thank you. That's a difficult question to answer because the facts differ in every case. Justice is different in every case. I actually had a former judge who coincidentally is named Judge Justice tell me that justice is different. It's different in every case. In some cases, it's a dismissal. In other cases, it could be the death penalty. Wide variety of things. So you have to evaluate every case fairly and impartially. And you know, as a prosecutor, I've always been willing to give somebody a fair shake if they don't have a criminal history. If it's a non-violent offense, that sort of thing. I think I've put more people on probation as a prosecutor than sent to prison. But at the same time, you know, you have to apply the law as it is written and apply it fairly and impartially.
Mrs. Grocott?
Could you read it again, please? I think
Sure.
you deviated a bit.
As judge, assuming a guilty verdict, do or would you favor probation for offenders or punishment that fits the offense? This is for both civil and criminal cases.
Okay, so it's different for civil and criminal cases. Civil cases, you don't get probation, you don't go to jail. Civil cases is about money, or if you're in family court, it's different. So our civil side of the law is very broad. Usually you're arguing about money. So probation isn't an issue. But in our criminal court, we have some sentencing guidelines, if you will, in our statutes. And it shows what class of felony or misdemeanor you're in and what the sentence imposition would be there. So first and foremost, I would follow what the law is and look and determine what the evidence is as far as the crime that's committed and what comes out of the evidence, if they're a first-time offender, if they're a violent offender, and we have leniency and strict mandatory sentencing under our statutes and our rules.
Okay, the next question, beginning with Mr. Brown. Christian County courts currently offer drug court. What are your thoughts on specialty treatment courts, and would you like to see more implemented?
Well, I love drug court. Drug court's a great program. People that graduate drug court, 90% do not reoffend if they graduate drug court. So it is a great, effective program. I love treatment courts. I love specialty courts. I think Christian County desperately needs a mental health court. I've seen so many people with mental health issues that end up in jail rather than getting the treatment that they need to be productive members of society. I think treatment courts are excellent, and as a judge, I would hope to utilize more.
Mrs. Grocott?
I agree. I think there are a lot of programs out there in courts all across our state that are utilizing alternative programs for nonviolent offenders, drug courts, mental health courts, and even over in Nixa now, the city has started a special court program at the municipal level. And I know that they hope to bring that over into Christian County and work with the county to develop a better system for that. And that also helps our courts stay free, the dockets open up a bit, and we can be more efficient if we utilize programs like that.
Mr. Elmer?
And I agree that we should have those. I mean, they are good programs. In fact, earlier today, I was talking to Joel Harris, who's the municipal court judge over in Nixa, who recently started that alternative court system over there. And we were talking about the benefits of it and the need to bring it to the county level. Like I told Joel, I said, if I'm elected, I mean, that's something that I do want us to look at. It's not something, when we first get in, you're going to have this learning curve, so it's not something that you can immediately latch onto, but I do think that it is something that works. We see it in Greene County to the north of us, and you hear consistently among members of the bar that it's something that is good and it works. So I think we should do more of it.
Okay, next question beginning with Mrs. Grocott. Have you served as a judge before?
The only time I've served as a judge is for moot court competitions and high school competitions where they put on trials. Other than that, I've just been a lawyer for my career.
Mr. Elmer?
I have an identical answer. I think as an attorney, you get called to judge those debates and stuff at the high school levels. It's pretty natural, but outside of that, that's it.
Mr. Brown?
I judged the 4-H pie contest.
Next question beginning with Mr. Elmer. In the position of circuit judge, you will be presiding over jury trials. How many jury trials have you first chaired?
I don't know off the top of my head. If I gave you an answer, I'd probably give you the wrong one. It's probably somewhere around 12 or 13, I would guess, if I'm rounding off. But if you go back and check the court records, I may be off by one or two. But
Mr. Brown?
First year jury trials, either 6 or 7. Total jury trials, 11.
Mrs. Grocott?
Total jury trials, 12, and first chair, I believe 5.
Okay. Next question beginning with Mr. Brown. In the position of circuit judge, you will be presiding over judge-decided hearings called bench trials. How many bench trials have you first chaired?
Well, bench trials, usually you're the only chair in a bench trial. At the felony level, felony levels, and you don't really get a lot of felony bench trials. I think I've done 4 felony bench trials. Misdemeanor bench trials, too many to count.
Mrs. Grocott?
Agreed. I have no idea how many bench trials that I've tried over a lot of bench trials.
Mr. Elmer?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head, but I would bet that I haven't done as many as Tony has. I will concede that point.
Okay, next question beginning with Mrs. Grocott. How many criminal cases have you tried?
Criminal traffic cases, a lot to resolution. Felonies, 0.
Mr. Elmer?
I'm not at any jury trials on the criminal side.
Mr. Brown?
Felony jury trials, 10, ranging from drug to murder. Misdemeanor jury trials, 1, and I think that's it.
Okay, next question beginning with Mr. Elmer. Guilty verdicts can get undone and appeal usually because of mistakes made by judges. What specialized experience do you have that gives you the technical ability to keep your mistakes to a minimum?
Well, that goes back to kind of an experience issue. with having had 16 years of dealing with the Missouri court rules. I mean, we have rules of evidence, what comes in and comes out, and working through the discovery process on cases, which occurs before you get in trouble. I mean, that, you know, you can have errors that occur at that point as well, but it really comes down to, once again, being a student and wanting to, if you don't know something, go look it up. And I've been in front of judges before that are willing, you know, outside of the view of the jury, usually they won't do it in front of the jury, but when the attorneys are in there and they're debating something, I mean, the judges will reach over and they'll grab the rule book and then they'll look at the notes and they'll try to apply the right application there. And that's what it is. It's just saying I'm going to be diligent about performing my job, which is properly applying the rules.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you. I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to make a decision until I know what the answer is. And I'm going to review, if I have a question about something, if I don't know what the answer is, I'm going to pull out the rule book. I've done that numerous occasions as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney. If I don't know the answer, I've got my little printed rule book always next to me when I'm in court. I pull it open, I look for the rule, and I find what rule applies. If I don't know the answer, I will find the answer. And that's, you know, I'm not going to make decisions unless I know the answer.
Mrs. Grocott?
I've had extensive appellate experience throughout my career, and working on the appellate side at the Southern District, I've worked on appellate cases outside of the state of Missouri and at the Missouri Supreme Court. In fact, I don't think there's a time that I've ever not had an appellate case pending during my practice. You learn a different perspective of what it means to go up on appeal and the standards and the matters that the trial judges deal with. And we've actually, many lawyers in my firm and down here, we do a lot of appellate work. And we get called in on the bigger cases a lot of times where there's a lot of money at issue, where the clients have a lot of money to spend, that they can bring in somebody to sit through a jury trial and evaluate from an appellate perspective. So when I'm trying a case, I do that as well, and I probably drive my other colleagues crazy because when I'm trying a case as a lawyer, I view it from the appellate side, and I think that will give me unique experience from the bench to know what happens up on appeal.
The next question being with Mr. Brown. Do you think renovating the second-story courtroom in the historical courthouse will be adequate for the incoming judge, as well as secure as it should be for a courtroom?
Well, you know, that's something that the commission and the Citizens Task Force decided on. It may not be the best solution, but it's the solution that we have. I think to some extent, for criminal cases especially, it will be inadequate. We're not going to be able to easily transport prisoners across the street from the jail to the historic courthouse. And we're going to need to make arrangements to either use a courtroom in the judicial center when another judge is not using it, or maybe use video conferencing. You know, I wish we had a different solution. I wish we had room in the judicial center to be.
So I think you have to believe and trust in the people that are making these decisions. I don't think the sheriffs or the commissioners are going to put the new judge at risk over there, or the parties that come before them. So I have a feeling that things are going to be just fine. And speaking from experience over there, the old courthouse and the old courtroom is very nice, and it'll be just fine.
Mr. Elmer?
I don't have a problem with the old courtroom. I mean, it's the most efficient way to handle things right now. It's the option we have, and I have faith in our commissioners and what it is that they're doing. I will say that the old courthouse, to me, has some nostalgia about it. I've traveled around courthouses all over Southwest Missouri and stuff, and the old ones where you're still going in and the benches are creaking heavily and stuff like that, it just resonates court to me. It really does. So there's not a problem at all with it being over there in the old courthouse.
Okay, next question begin with Mrs. Grocott. What would be the advantages and disadvantages of holding night court?
Night court is an issue that I'm not sure everybody has really thought through. So the judges and the court system are not ran by the county. And OSCA, our Office of State Court Administrators at the state level, runs the courts and decides how that all works. So this is an issue way beyond the county level that I don't think any of us here tonight would solve as far as night court. Problems with night court, lawyers. Are you going to require lawyers to come at night? You're going to have night patrol. You're going to have a lot of things happening at night, which requires additional money and additional resources. And I'm just not sure that OSCA would be all for night court here in Christian County.
Mr. Elmer?
I agree with those problems that Ms. Grocott just identified. I mean, as a judge, I think you always have to be open to things, but you also have to always consider efficiency and what works. And those are some very good points that I would reiterate as well that have to play into any decision along those lines.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you. I am open to the idea, I mean, provided it can work. There are a lot of issues with it that would have to be addressed. You know, as in my job right now, law days, I am frequently in court till sometimes 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. I think the latest I've been in court is 1 o'clock in the morning. Awful. And that happens here in Christian County too sometimes. Not quite as late as 1 o'clock in the morning, but we do sometimes go past 5 on Christian County Law Day. So, I mean, if these are issues that we can address to, you know, to be able to utilize our court space most efficiently, then let's address them and let's do it.
Next question beginning with Mr. Elmer. Pick one case that had the most impact on you in the last 100 years and tell us why.
Impact on me personally, I don't know. Oh, that's hard to say. I mean, I kind of like the Heller decision that was handed down in 2008 by the United States Supreme Court. That was the first time in the history of the United States that they determined that your Second Amendment rights are to the individual. The dissenting opinion in that, of course it was a 5-4 decision, but the dissenting opinion in that, you know, said that it should be limited to just the militia. But I think that Scalia wrote the opinion on that, and I think that they got it right. And I think that was pretty significant, them to say that the Bill of Rights says it's the individuals, and it is.
Mr. Brown?
Well, like Mr. Elmer, I do like the Heller decision. I think the one that's probably had the most influence on me, you know, I'm talking about nationally, not cases that I've tried, etc., would probably be Brown versus Board of Education. I grew up in the southern United States. I've seen, you know, the schools and stuff down there were still dealing with segregation issues and desegregation issues as late as now. They're still dealing with them. And, you know, I think it's a testament to our society, you know, to tell people we all need to just get along, be together, and everybody is, you know, everybody just needs to get along and love one another.
Mrs. Grocott?
I'll speak to a case that I actually handled. It was a case involving a little boy, a minor. His initials were TQL. It went to the Supreme Court of Missouri, and we established third-party custody rights in certain circumstances for non-biological parents. And it is found in the statute, and nobody had recognized it before we took it up. And that is important to me because it was really a heart-wrenching case, and it was best for that little boy. And every Christmas now, I get a call and an email from the father of this little boy, the putative father. He wasn't the actual father, unbeknownst to him at the time, but saying thank you and that you made a difference in our family. And because of you, we have a unified family, and he's doing great. And I got to meet him probably about 2 months ago at a function that his dad brought him to for me so that I could meet him. So that's the case that had the greatest impact personally on my life.
The next question beginning with Mr. Brown. What do you want the community to know about the 38th Circuit District 2 Judge seat before heading to the polls?
Well, I think the community knows a lot about it already. This is a brand new seat. We're not replacing anybody. There's no incumbent on the bench. And I think myself or Ms. Grocott or Mr. Elmer are all good choices. We're all wanting to just serve our community and make Christian County a better place. And, you know, be informed. I would ask that you be informed and know about all candidates before voting. And, you know, just know that you're not replacing anyone.
Mrs. Grocott? Sure. What do you want the community to know about the 38th Circuit Division 2 Judge seat before heading to the polls?
This is a great advancement for our county here. They have been working on it for a long time. The new judge has been needed for a very long time. And if you put the right person in that seat, we will have great success and move this county forward. And I encourage you to get out there. You're here. I know you're informed voters, and a lot of you are here for other candidates here tonight. But just research the candidates. We ask that you do that and put your faith in us to serve. And I think any of us would do a fine job.
Mr. Elmer?
one more time. Could you read the question?
Sure. What do you want the community to know about the 38th Circuit Division 2 judge seat before heading to the polls?
Well, it is an open seat, and this is a real benefit to our community. It really is. And whenever I first went to the State House back in 2010, whenever I was elected, everybody was talking about adding a judge. And 4 years up there, it didn't go anywhere. And I really thought it wouldn't happen. And I got to hand it to Representative Lynn Morris, who's here tonight, and Senator Wasson, who got this taken care of this year. I mean, it is a benefit. It really is. So I think that I can't stress that enough to everybody that this will help our court systems immensely. And I do encourage you to be informed on who we put in there, because this is a real opportunity to move our judicial system forward here in Christian County.
Okay, this next question is an audience question specifically for Mr. Elmer. How can you explain your recent lawsuit you have on Josh Hawley, a law professor at the University of Missouri? Doesn't this look bad on your campaign? The paper says you are supporting Kurt Schaefer.
I have said that I will vote for Kurt Schaefer. I didn't say that I support him. I've not endorsed his campaign. The lawsuit stems from a sunshine request from May 26th of last year, 2015, and it was to the University of Missouri. People focus on Hawley, but the University of Missouri is a governmental entity that's the main bad actor in this thing. But what happened was I asked for a sunshine request. They gave me a list of items and costs associated with it, paid over $4,900, and then they continued to delay. And of course, our sunshine law says it's 72 hours, says it is. And I talked to the university officials, I talked to their main people up there multiple times, and they just kept dragging their feet. And finally, in May of this year, a year after, I finally stood up for myself against this governmental entity and filed a lawsuit. Because I think that we need to enforce the sunshine law here in Missouri.
Okay, before closing remarks, each of you may have the opportunity to ask an opponent a question, beginning with Mrs. Grocott.
You know, I think that we have all ran our judicial campaigns pretty fairly here, and a good lawyer never asks a question to anybody that you don't already know the answer to. And any question that I already know the answer to would only seek to embarrass or harass somebody else, and that's not the position of a judge, so I'll pass on the question.
Mr. Elmer?
I came here tonight already prepared to do the same thing. I'm not going to engage in gotcha politics.
Ms. Brown?
I'm not going to ask a question or answer any question.
You were going to,
Each of you will have 1 minute for closing remarks, beginning with Mr. Elmer.
I'm Kevin Elmer, and I'm running for circuit judge. I bring to the table being, I believe, the most experienced candidate up here. I've been practicing law the longest. I've got the widest breadth of type of cases that I've handled. I have done insurance defense work. I have done workers' compensation cases. I have done wills and estates. I have been in solo practice. I've been with firms in Springfield, done medical malpractice defense work. I bring to the table those experiences, and I bring to the table a pledge of service to my community. This isn't about me. This isn't about what I desire. This isn't about what I believe. This is about the application of the laws so that justice will prevail. Without justice, our system fails. Our government fails. This is a very critical branch of government, and it's important that integrity is maintained in it, and I pledge to be part of that system and maintain integrity every day that I'm in the courtroom.
Mrs. Grocott?
The job description of a judge is fair and impartial, unbiased, and will not harass. And I think that if you look at my history as a lawyer, I have consistently been a lawyer, practicing, focusing only on my practice as a lawyer. I've been in courts all across the state, in the Supreme Court, in the Court of Appeals, and courts in other states. I know what it takes to be a good judge, and I'm the only candidate up here that has the judges and some community leaders behind me that have been judges, and I know that might sound contrite, but I went and I asked some of the judges that I have practiced with, beside, and before over the years, and those judges know what it takes to be a good judge. and they have endorsed me fully for the position, and I think that means a lot. And going forward, I promise to use my legal skills and my experience as a mom and a lawyer and a decision maker and a community volunteer to serve this county the best way that I know how.
Mr. Brown?
Well, thank you for having me. My name's, again, Tony Brown. I am running for circuit judge. I believe I'm uniquely qualified because of the fact that I have been a prosecutor. I have had to make decisions. Judges and prosecutors are alike in a lot of ways, albeit from a different perspective. As a prosecutor, I take law enforcement referrals, I look at the evidence, I make a decision of whether to charge someone, what to charge them with, or if to charge them at all. I sometimes have to make tough calls. I sometimes have to say, hey, this evidence was unlawfully obtained, or there's not enough evidence and we can't charge this. Judges have to do sort of the same thing. They hear evidence put on by attorneys, and they have to say, well, you know, your client is really sympathetic, but there's just not enough evidence there, and the law supports this person. You have to be able to make those tough judgment calls, and I've done that. I've done that for the past over 5 years of my life. I'm Tony Brown. I'm running for circuit judge. Thank you.
Let's give him a round of applause.